touchdown passes last year. This one's knocked up. Bowers tips it to himself, and he'll score.
Snaps it anyway. Greer lobs it in the air. Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free. It's picked up by Michigan State. Jalen Watts Jackson, and he scores on the left. Here's a blitz, and Klubnik didn't see it coming. He got blasted by Kalen DeLoach, who has the ball and is heading toward the end zone.
What's going on, guys? We are back. It is episode 50, guys. We're 50 episodes in. I think that's a nice little pat on the back right there.
Yeah.
You know, most podcasts, some podcasts don't make it this far, so it's good to be here. Any feeling about being at 50 episodes?
Incredible.
Incredible? Nice.
I mean, I can't believe we made it this far. We made it this far, we can do anything, really.
Exactly. Road to 100 now.
Mhm.
Speaking of 100, let's make sure we are getting that road to 100 subscribers. What a transition.
Yes.
We are at 73 right now, guys, so love the new added subscriptions, but listen, we still got some more to go. We got 27 to go now, I believe, because that's quick math.
Yeah.
So if you're not subscribed already, but you're watching, first of all, thanks for watching, but subscribe. Why are you not watching? Why are you watching and not subscribed? You know, just subscribe. It's free. Doesn't do anything but help us out, and that means it's helping you out and the end result. But make sure you guys are still watching and listening on Spotify, as excuse me, I know that you guys are doing. We got a great show for you guys today. Playoff rankings came out. A bunch of games to talk about from this past weekend. Got coaches fired, which is big news. It's that time of the year. And we got some hot seat questions along with winners and losers. So we'll get right into it, Dylan, with this week's playoff rankings that were just popped up today. This was released around 9 o'clock tonight. And as you can see, we have a new number one, but we'll start as we always do from 25 to 1.
Yep.
And we'll give our little quick take. 25, we got Kansas. 24 is Tulane. 23, Oklahoma State after that bludgeoning that went on in Orlando.
Yep.
22 is Utah. 21, Kansas State. 20 is North Carolina. And 19 is Notre Dame. If you're listening on Spotify, we're just going row by row. So, Dylan, any thoughts here from that first row?
Off the top of my head, the only thing I can think of is UNC being a little bit high.
Okay.
That's the only thing I can really. I mean, other than that, I don't think it looks bad.
Two things that Oklahoma State still being ranked after what that happened in Orlando is a little surprising.
Yeah.
Also, the committee does seem to like Utah in a sense that they respect the losses because that was already their third loss. But they played their ass off this weekend in Washington. So, a couple close losses this year has barely been except for the Oregon game. But other than that, some closer losses. So they still respect them. That's what I just took away there. 18 through 12, we got Tennessee. 17 is Arizona. Iowa's at 16. LSU hanging around at 15. Oklahoma at 14. Ole Miss drops back from 9 to 13. And Penn State only drops 2 spots to number 12.
Yeah.
I don't mind Penn State dropping that. I thought Ole Miss may have dropped a little more than they did, but it's okay. I mean, you lose to the top-ranked team or top 3 team in the country, is what it is. LSU is the best 3-ranked team right now. So, 11 through 5 goes. Excuse me. Oregon State is at 11. The Beavers have a huge game at home this weekend with Washington coming to town. Louisville at 10. A surprise first appearance in the top 10. Missouri, which makes that Georgia win even better. So if Missouri keeps winning, that's going to help out Georgia. Alabama's at 8 still. The rest, actually, the top 8 remains the same except for one spot. Georgia flip-flops Ohio State for the top spot. So it goes Bama, Texas, Oregon, Washington, Florida State, Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia. Any thoughts there?
I think it looks pretty good to me. I don't know how you're feeling about this, but only one I could see flipping would be Oregon State and Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Oregon State could do that this Saturday if that really is a big deal.
Oregon State could play very fun game of spoiler with taking out Washington. Did you ever think for a second maybe that Michigan or Ohio State would maybe drop to 3 after Michigan and Georgia State wins this weekend?
I was thinking for a second, but then I was like, I doubt it.
I think that Notre Dame being back in 19 and Penn State still in the top 15 still helps out Ohio State.
Yeah.
But Georgia right now, I think it rightfully is the best team in the country. When they're playing their A game, I don't really think personally, even aside from being a fan, I just think that it's very hard for a team to beat them when they're on their A game.
Yeah.
And you saw that this weekend. I mean, Ole Miss was supposed to be one of the most challenging games they played this year. And for a quarter and maybe like 5 minutes it was. And then it became just an utter smackdown. So I think when they're on their A game, they're the best team in the country. So I don't really see Ohio State. I still have some questions about from the offensive side, like from the quarterback spot. Michigan, what they did on Saturday was outstanding from a just ground and pound play 1980s football, I guess. But I don't know. It's really just going to set up a clash between those 2 and 3 teams, Ohio State, Michigan. Playing hypothetical here. If Ohio State and Michigan, let's say they both go undefeated.
Yeah.
Is that an elimination game right there?
Yeah, I think so.
Because
I just don't see a scenario in which one of those, because there's a chance that I don't think, like, let's just say, for instance, undefeated Michigan, right? They win against Ohio State. They win the Big Ten. Georgia's undefeated SEC championship. Florida State ACC championship. Washington or Oregon or Texas all could be one-loss conference champions. I don't think one of those 2 Big Ten teams would get in over one of those other teams who not only would have they'd be tied with 1 loss, but they would also have an extra win. You know what I mean? I just don't see it unless it's like some crazy scenario where Michigan wins by a returned kick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's that they walk off the game like that. That's the only way I could see that scenario.
I'm just writing down this hypothetical real quick.
Okay.
1 second here. So I'm just playing this hypothetical. I think this could be one of the more realistic ones. There are a lot. You can play I love playing hypotheticals.
Yeah.
But here we go. And I gotta put we'll say all right, so let's say Michigan and Florida State go undefeated.
Yep.
Let's say Knowles, the way they play, what I tell you this weekend, I said their inconsistencies are going to come back and bite them at some point, and it almost did this weekend. Michigan also undefeated, so you have those 2 teams in.
Yeah.
Now you got 2 spots left here. Let's say Oregon beats Washington in the Pac-12 title game, knocks them out. So you got Oregon a 1-loss champ. Bama's we'll say Bama's a 1-loss champ. UGA 1 loss is to Alabama. Close game. And that's their only loss, and they have the best resume.
Yeah.
Texas, a 1-loss champ. Who gets the final 2 spots?
So I think Texas would get 1 in this scenario because they have a head-to-head with Bama. So, I mean, I think they might still even be ranked above Alabama in that scenario. Because people have been arguing for a while that Bama should be above Texas, but the committee has not budged on that. And then just give me the other options again one more time.
Oregon, a 1-loss Pac-12 champ. Assuming that Washington doesn't lose this week, which I think could hurt the Ducks. because
Yeah.
you beat a one-loss top 10, top 12 team.
Hmm.
So Oregon a one-loss champ. Bama's a one-loss champ with a weak
Yeah.
resume, and only big win is Georgia. LSU was like 14,
Yeah.
something like that. So Bama's a one-loss champ. UGA only loss is to Bama, but they have the best resume. Texas a one-loss champ. I think it's the only
So
people really left in this.
yeah.
Yeah.
So in this scenario, it would be like Michigan 1, Florida State 2, probably in this situation, I would say maybe Oregon 3, Texas 4.
I could see that, and I would see
I
probably
think,
Bama and Georgia left out right there.
yeah, just because I think in that scenario you would go Texas beat Alabama
So they have a
in
head-to-head.
in Tuscaloosa by double digits.
Does the Big 12 self-implosion from the last couple weeks hurt them, though?
Because it's Texas, I don't think so.
I think it
Because
could.
I think if it comes down to it, Texas is too big of a brand to be a one-loss conference champ. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I think that if the Big 12 keeps cannibalizing itself,
Hmm.
it's going to hurt them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, maybe it doesn't, but
I
and
mean,
the committee loves themselves some Alabama. So
no, they do. They do love Alabama, but I do think if Texas wins out, they give one loss, they have the one loss, they win the Big 12. I don't think you could even make a real argument they deserve it. That Alabama deserves it over them.
I think
Because the truth is Texas beat them by double digits in Tuscaloosa.
I think what teams really want to do, and I know you
Mhm.
probably want earmuffs here, but I think a lot of the teams in the country either want those top 2, 3, those Michigan, Ohio State teams knock each
Mhm.
other out, and they would love if Florida State lost a game.
Yeah.
Because if Florida State loses a regular season game, or I think even the ACC title game, if they don't go undefeated, they're out.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just their schedule's not good enough.
Hmm.
They played one solid half against LSU, and that's really been their best win this year.
Hmm.
Because other than that, no, they don't have any other ranked wins. So
Well, ranked right now,
right
because I
now,
think if you want to say it,
they'll
Washington's most impressive win is Oregon, followed by USC, and USC is not ranked.
yes. So I think Florida State if Florida State loses, they're gone.
Hmm.
Regardless if they're a one-loss conference champ,
Yeah.
because the ACC is not good enough.
Hmm.
I think Oregon State beating Washington really helps people. It helps Bama out, I think.
Yeah.
If Missouri wins out, that's going to help out because they'll be a top 7 team, which could help
Mhm.
Georgia out.
Yeah.
There is a lot of scenarios. It makes the SEC title game probably the most biggest game of the year because it, in a sense, becomes a knockout game if everything else just kind of lines back up.
Hmm.
A lot of good stuff here. A lot of big week coming up too because you have Georgia going to Knoxville, Washington heading to Oregon State.
Yeah.
There's another big game that I'm blanking on. I mean, who else plays this week? I'm going to look this up real quick. I think I want to say what was it? Oh, Louisville goes to Miami, which
Yep.
they need to beat Miami to keep Florida State's that win more impressive.
Yeah.
Trying to see who else here. I mean, Missouri has Florida coming to town, and Texas goes to Iowa State. So there are some sneaky trap games for top road teams right now.
Hmm.
How about
Now, I have a weird scenario. Hear me out with this. This is not playoff important,
Yep.
but if Georgia beats Alabama in the SEC championship, right? Which
Mhm.
I think they will, but we're saying if.
No, they won't.
Does Missouri get into a better bowl game and Alabama gets knocked out of a good one?
I would say, it probably
Because
depends on how bad. It probably depends
because
on what the
Missouri
game
would
is.
definitely be the second highest ranked SEC team after that.
They would. If you're
Mhm.
basing off of wins, though, I think Missouri's best win this year is a win against Tennessee right now,
Yeah.
or
Mhm.
Kentucky at Kentucky.
Yeah.
Because they lose their only losses were at home against LSU and then Georgia.
Mhm.
I mean, you could. It depends on how much that game goes and where Bama's ranked at the time. But I could see that. It depends on Missouri wins out. I could see Missouri definitely playing into a New Year's Six game for sure.
Because as crazy as this sounds, I think right now, till conference championship week, as long as these teams in the top 10, right? Ignore number 11. The teams in 1 through 10, if they went out, they're probably all staying in the exact same spot they are.
Yes.
I don't think anything's going to
Bama,
change.
Texas, and Oregon need someone to slip up to really move up there.
Mhm.
Because other than that, it's playing the tiebreaker game, and then
Yeah.
you're just kind of right there.
Now, Washington plays Oregon State. Now, there's a chance Washington jumps Florida State after this weekend. But, I mean, you never know with that kind of thing, because if Washington just barely scrapes by,
If
there's a chance they just stay there.
Washington loses to Oregon State, and
They're
let's
done.
say they lose to Oregon State, and then they lose again to Oregon,
Yeah.
that could maybe, I mean, that might hurt Oregon some, because what if, oh my God, Oregon State has the key to just the nuclear football at this point. They could knock out, in a sense, you could knock out Washington, put them in a spot, turn around and go to Eugene and beat Oregon at home in Oregon as like one last big FU as they leave the conference.
Mhm.
Can you imagine that scenario? And they just knock each other out, play cannibal.
Well, I was going to say this right now, just because this is a true thing nobody's talking about. Washington has not clinched the Pac-12 championship.
They're playing with fire. I thought Utah was going to get them. Utah about did. They led for part of that, most parts of that game late in the game. So who knows? They keep playing a little bit of fire. You're going to get burned. And could it be in Corvallis this weekend? Might just be.
And I'm just saying Arizona probably still has a decent shot at the championship.
Dead Fish and the Fighting Wildcats got something cooking down there. They got Utah this weekend, so we'll see.
They have the same conference record as Oregon State at 5-2. Now, I think it's a little bit crazy because Washington is going to play Oregon State this weekend, who they very much could lose to. Not that crazy. And then they play in the Apple Cup against.
They won't. Washington will win that game.
Washington State is not that bad.
4-6.
They were good at one point.
All right. We'll keep an eye on this. Like we said, like I always say, plenty always to play for. As each week goes, the hypotheticals just get bigger and bigger. So we'll keep rolling there.
Yeah.
But let's get right into it. We got some games to talk about. And it starts in Athens, Georgia, where the Dogs, the now top-ranked Bulldogs, took care of Ole Miss, steamrolling them.
Yep.
And what was senior night in Athens, an electric crowd as always, but man, it looked really good there. First and foremost, Dylan lost. He said 30-27, Ole Miss would win. It was a 35-point win. I think that's what that math checks out to. Yeah. Yep. 35. All that aside, it was a close game till about
2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. They went up 2 touchdowns. Or second quarter, sorry.
Yeah. Georgia went up 28-14 at half. It could have been a lot bigger going into half. There was a late pick by Beck, which really wasn't even his fault. It went off the hands, I believe, of Dominic Lovett. And then it just kind of happenly just fell right into the guy's hands. So they were in field goal range for that.
Yeah.
So it could have been a lot worse. Regardless of the fact, it was a fast start by Ole Miss, back and forth. But at the end of the day, the Dogs put the clamps down on defense, and Ole Miss vice versa. Ole Miss could not stop Georgia to save their life on offense, or when Georgia was on the field for offense. Carson Beck, he just keeps on rolling. I mean, just steady as it is. 18-25, 306, 2 tuds. I mean, Georgia averaged 10 yards a play, 12 yards through the air, 8 yards, almost 9 yards on the ground. They had 611 total yards of offense, 311 through the air, 300 on the ground. Kendall Milton had 9 carries for $127, including a big 51-yarder, I believe, for a touchdown. He had 2 touchdowns. Ladd McConkey had 4 receptions, 81 yards. How about Brock Bowers started superhuman. 26 days after surgery, he just comes back, has like 3 catches, has a touchdown as if he never left.
Yep.
Dogs roll, and I think they show now that there's 2 questions, I guess. So first one is, does Georgia just show like that they put the country back on watch? Like, listen, let Michigan and Ohio State and all of them have their fun, but like quietly, we're just kind of just up, and we're back up on our pedestal. Like, when we're on our A game, like you ain't nobody have a shot against us.
Mm-hmm.
And then vice versa. Next question I'll let you answer is, are you disappointed in the effort from Ole Miss? Did you expect more? I guess you did because you thought they were going to win. But were you expecting more, or were you just kind of like, it is what it is?
I expected more from them. I mean, I thought their lines would play better too. I mean, they could not get any pressure when it came to getting pressure on Carson Beck.
Yeah.
Especially as the second quarter went on, they kind of just looked like exhausted quick. And their O-line was getting killed at times there.
Yeah.
Like they just could not even like the plays were getting broken up before they were even like, you know what I mean? Like it was like, oh my gosh. Oh, Jackson Dart.
Dart, yeah. It's crazy because like Quinshon Judkins was having a really good game.
Yeah.
The start, like he had 2 touchdowns. I mean, fast start as Georgia always lets up. Georgia on first drives lets other teams just roll down the field.
Yeah.
And it looked like early Ole Miss was going to do what Missouri did a lot of, where that was that outside zone game on their outside, trying to get outside the tackles on the runs.
Yeah.
And they were having a little early success, but then like, it just after like midway through like the second, they could not get anything going. They started running the ball like up the middle a lot, where like was not going to work. No team's ever really been able to just run in between the tackle or run in between like the guards and tackles for any success ever against us or Georgia. So it was just boys or men among boys. I saw a stat at the end of the game. They were comparing like talking about 5 stars or something like that. Like since Lane Kiffin took over at Ole Miss, which was 3 years ago? Somewhere around there. Since that, like Georgia's had 24 5 stars or something like that signed, and Ole Miss has had 1. Some crazy number like that. So it's just talent-wise, roster-wise, you just have better athletes. And Lane Kiffin talked about in this presser, just saying about like, listen, it's not on the players, it's on the coaches. We got to do better at recruiting, continue to keep better at recruiting, using this portal, and just developing. Because I think they have guys. It just was never going to be that night. And for Ole Miss, it's got to be that next step is to find a roster where they're able to compete against Alabama, against the LSUs more, against Georgia's whenever often they play them. We play actually Georgia and Ole Miss. Georgia will head to Ole Miss next year, so Kiffin will get another shot at it. But one last thing here before we get rolling. I just had it in my head. Just thinking about it. Well, if I think about it, I'll just pull it back up. But
I also just want to say before we get into this next one, there is a man named Joel Klatt who really put J.J. McCarthy as his Heisman favorite.
Bet.
Unserious take right there, man. Unserious take.
Oh, my God. I can't.
What a joke. What a joke.
J.J. McCarthy does not belong on any Heisman ballot in existence right now. He does nothing. Yeah. He has not done anything. Listen, he's a good quarterback. He has never elevated himself to being a great quarterback. There is not a game where they have not stolen a sign where he has been the better quarterback on the field. I'm sorry. Every game that's mattered, except for the Ohio State game last year in which they cheated, he has not done anything. He cost them against TCU.
Yep.
And that's been the only other game that's mattered because their schedule is always a joke. So that's just another rant for another time. But no, he does not belong on any Heisman ballot. Get it out of here.
I'm still trying to get over the fact that he threw for 60 yards.
Well, hey, he ran the ball. We'll get into that in a second. One last thing, Georgia moved 12th straight win at home against ranked opponents. It's their 27th straight win. They haven't lost a regular season game now in the SEC since 2020. That moves them to 26 consecutive there. And they just keep on rolling. Keep on rolling. That's how they.
What is Georgia's home winning record right now? How many games have they won at home in a row?
Well, they haven't lost since I think it's 36 now, 37. They haven't lost since 2019 in October when South Carolina beat them.
Yep.
And that coach is on our staff, is on Georgia's staff now, and Will Muschamp.
Yep.
So, a lot of games.
So he gets hired. He gets hired in College Station. Come on.
Ha! Yeah,
Muschamp Mondays.
Well, yeah. All right, we're going to move on now to another. This was the big noon kickoff. This was in my opinion, the second biggest game of the week. Michigan runs wild on Penn State. I say that only because in the second half, Michigan they ran the ball every single play in the half. I believe it was 32 plays.
Yep.
32 plays around there where they ran the ball. Every play. We can go through it here if you want. Play by play. Let's go. Oh, crap. Stupid. Let's go through it here. Second half. Penn State fumbled.
Mm-hmm.
Run. You get the point.
Yeah.
They ran the ball that many times, and they still scored 2 touchdowns. Or they scored a field goal and a touchdown while doing that. But that was just it. Penn State. Michigan just completely owned the line of scrimmage on both sides. Yeah. Drew Aller missed some easy throws that could have been difference makers in the game if they get hit. A lot of threw it behind the receivers instead of getting it out in front, which ended up being some drive killers.
Mm-hmm.
But the only moment I really thought this game was close was Penn State cut it to 5 going into half. They were getting the ball. They got a first down or 2. And I believe they got it around midfield, and then they fumbled. And then I think Penn State scored a field goal right after. And then from that moment on, it was really just run the ball until they can't stop it anymore, and they never stopped it. So,
yeah.
Michigan only had 287 total yards, but rushed for 227. Only threw the ball 8 times. McCarthy was 7 of 8. That's a Heisman-worthy stat right there. 60 yards, and they're going to say, well, they didn't need him to do it. Fair, but then don't put him in the Heisman.
He's not the Heisman then, yeah.
He's not a Heisman. Okay, sorry.
He's not Bo Nix.
No. Blake Corum had 145 yards, 2 touchdowns. But that was really it. They averaged 5 yards a carry on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Just the issue was Penn State could never get anything going. And that's just been the story this year. They fired their OC, just announced earlier this week, right after, I think it was Sunday or Monday they did.
Yeah.
So, they want to go out with someone new. But if you're James Franklin, who do you even look to go there for that OC? Because I feel like this team is ready now. Like, they have a championship caliber defense. They got a quarterback that's a freshman. He's going to continue to grow. He's had really good spots this year. It's just been against that tougher competition in Ohio State and Michigan. He has struggled.
And I do think if you're Penn State, this is gonna be one of those years where you're gonna be like that. This was a year to do it, because I think Manny Diaz might get hired away as a head coach.
He could.
I'm just saying that
I like
Mississippi
the point,
State job.
I like the point. Because you look at Ohio State was figuring out a quarterback this year.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan, you still were like, okay, well, they hadn't played. They aren't playing anybody.
Their head coach is not coaching against you today.
No, R.I.P. Harbaugh, because they cried their tears out. They cried their eyes out after that. Yeah. Just a complete. It just shows why college football is outstanding, because you just have a real life soap opera going on in Ann Arbor.
Mm-hmm.
While everything else is going on. So back to my say though, this was the year to do something. He had a really good ending of the year last year at the Rose Bowl. You come in, you got this brand new hotshot quarterback who was, gaining momentum. Like, this is going to be a big year for him. And then the games you had to win, the defense played well enough to win the game, to put you in a spot to win the game, but the offense never showed up. Offensive line was getting pushed around. The defensive line was there, but then would go in and out spurts sometimes.
Yeah.
But yesterday was just a case of just wearing you out until you pretty much couldn't stop do anything else anymore. And that's pretty much what happened. I mean, Michigan sets up now a really big collision course, assuming they take care of at Maryland next week.
Oh yeah.
It'll set up a big noon kickoff collision course against Ohio State, and they get them at home. So
let's be honest, game day will probably be there. It's gonna be a crazy day.
Yeah.
I mean, other than that, I think game day might go to Atlanta. You never know.
Oh, Bobby Dodd! I was getting all excited. Gonna be watching on the phone. I'll be at the Florida State game that night too. So we'll have to have it on the phone. We're gonna be watching. Don't worry. First time since 2013. That's a night game. Getting off topic again right there, but Sanford South. You know what they call it? Sanford South.
You know what? I will say this. I think the Tech fans are going to be a little bit more excited for this game than most years.
Listen,
this is the best Georgia Tech team I've seen since like 2015.
Congrats. They just got tailspun by Clemson this weekend.
Happens to a lot of teams, not Florida State though.
You were someone forgot their assignment. Fumble touchdown from losing that. Don't worry. Oh, and a kicker jinx. But that's not the point. Point is that Georgia's going to go into Tech and destroy them. But we're going to finish out here.
Haynes King Masterclass is coming.
Yeah. All right. If you're Penn State, you're probably going to finish 10-2. Is it a failure of a season? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Here's my thought process, right? You are supposed to win the Big Ten eventually.
He's only won it one time.
You can't do this every single year. You can't just lose to Michigan and Ohio State and beat everybody else and be like, yeah, we're good. Third place isn't that bad.
Listen, they must like bronze. You know what I mean?
You know what? Bronze is not for me, buddy.
No. All right. We're going to move on, though. Penn State, they'll probably go to a really high-end bowl game. I don't think they'll be at a New Year's Six unless something happens. Crazy something. Like they finished third last year and went to the Rose Bowl, so anything's possible. Anyway,
they went to the Rose Bowl because both teams went to the playoffs.
Well, Ohio State backdoored their way in.
Yeah, that won't happen this year.
We're going to move on. FSU survives the hurricane at home, 27-20. This was a very tight game, back and forth. The officiating had some questionable no calls in this game for both sides.
Yeah, it was weird, right?
There was Miami should have had a safety, which could have helped them out. Florida State. I actually
think Miami got help from there not being a safety because they were able to get the ball closer. Yeah. And because they would have only gotten 2 points out of that.
With
and then
the
they
ball
would have had to take a full. They would have had to take a full drive though.
But I mean, that was a punt though, so depending on where you get the ball, you probably get it right around midfield again.
Yeah, we got a good punter though.
Okay. Anyway. And then vice versa, Miami gets away with a targeting call that really was pretty blatant. Greg McElroy was like, that is just awful. Like that should have been called. Like that was a really bad no call. So, because that was big, because I think Florida State ended up punting the ball back to Miami. But, there was a really bad injury with Emory Williams.
He outstretched for the first down and got hit.
And it was just ugly. They didn't show the replay.
I think they said
arm air casted.
Yeah, I think they said he broke his left arm.
Yeah, because I think it was a collarbone issue with his arm. But yeah, that was no. But Van Dyke came in. I think then they hit the big play that cut it to 7. They ended up getting the ball back.
No, they scored. Emory Jones scored first, and then they get the ball. He gets hurt on that, and then Van Dyke throws the pick right away to seal the end because that's what he does this year.
Yeah, listen, but Miami, I think the Miami is Miami. I think they're still where they want to be. Rome
what?
wasn't built in a day for Miami, but
Yeah, and I think they played as best they could
I mean,
because they played to win a game how you play to win an upset. You know what I mean? They capitalized on FSU not being able to score very often. They were really good on the running game. That was their biggest thing. Was they would get off 8-yard runs again and again and again,
yeah.
and it would just and then they would lead them to a decent play action. But I think they just have a problem at quarterback right now. I think Emory Williams could be good in the future. Obviously, he probably won't play the rest of this year, but he definitely
So
needs more time because I don't know how it felt to you, but that first quarter, it really did feel like he was in over his head. Like he was not told he was the starter until everybody else told he was until everybody else found out he was the starter.
yeah, for sure. I mean, if you look at Miami and Florida State are
Mhm.
really talent-wise, roster-wise, just like they're pretty similar with each other. Like
Yeah.
Miami, at 24/7 has them ranked 7 spots higher than Florida State does at
Yeah.
13 and 20. So, you
Hmm.
know, you look at roster ads through the portal like Keon Coleman, which
Hmm.
could shows that a lot of teams some places are one, maybe two players away from hitting big. And Keon Coleman has done that with Florida State, even though he's playing
Yeah.
through an injury, but he had a game changing punt return
Yep.
the other day. So, but I think Miami is where they want to be. I think they're still on the rise. They have a very young team like
Hmm.
Florida, but Miami's actually winning.
Yeah.
Miami has a lot of young guys. I think
Mhm.
Emory Williams is really good. I think he's
Yeah.
better than Van Dyke. Obviously, Van Dyke got benched, but if you're FSU, I know you're an FSU fan, so I'm going to ask you
Yep.
this. Give me your
Hmm.
unbiased spot. Are
Yeah.
you concerned at all about these stretches? Like I said last
Hmm.
week, what hurts my Florida State is that there goes stretches in games where they just
Yeah.
either really, really down to their opponent, or they just can't do anything with the ball.
Yeah. I'm not too worried about it because the thing is, last week we didn't have the wide receivers, and
Mhm.
that's a killing blow to a team that relies on the passing game pretty hard.
But you're at home this week
Mhm.
against a
Against
team. You're up.
North Alabama.
Well, no, you're home. You're home last week against Miami. You're a
Hmm.
2 touchdown favorite.
Yep.
You got everyone back,
Hmm.
regardless of how they played.
Yeah.
Is I mean, is that sustainable? I mean, again, like we said,
Hmm.
like they have like one big quarter, half a quarter where they just explode, and they
Yeah.
just turn it on, and then they create enough space where it's hard for teams to come back on.
Hmm.
Is that sustainable? Like, is
I honestly think it is with Florida State because they do have the guys to keep them in
does
games.
that get in a way
No
with?
no team is going to be able to just blow up on the other side. If you understand what I'm saying,
Yeah, I got you.
because they have their cornerbacks are good. Their
Mhm,
defensive line is not as good as it was last year, but they still create decent pressure.
mhm.
Teams are going to struggle to pass the ball in Florida State.
Do
It's just the way that their game plan is. You got to rely
let's
on the running game, and when you can only
hypothetically,
okay.
let's say they get matched up against like they make it to the playoff, but they get matched up
Mhm.
against Michigan
Yeah,
or whoever wins the Big Ten. So we'll say Michigan or let's say Oregon.
yeah.
Do you get worried at all?
I mean, with any good team, I worry a little bit, but at the same time,
I just think that
there's guys on this roster who can just explode, right?
the Florida State offense,
Mhm.
it's funny. It's just the team in general. It's like it's so bipolar. Like I mean,
Yep.
like when Florida State's on, my God, they'll beat anybody. But like when
Hmm.
they're on their like B minus
Yeah.
game, C plus,
Hmm.
like we've seen in stretches of games, it's like I just don't think you can do that against teams like that. You're not going to
Yeah.
get away with it as much as you are against teams like Miami or Pitt or
Hmm.
Boston College. Like you can't get away with that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
But I think the team knows that
Yeah.
to a degree, because like the same way how you know they play a bad game against Boston College, but they start the season by murdering LSU. You know what I mean? They beat LSU
Trailing
by
at half,
more. They beat LSU by more points
they
than
did.
Alabama did at
They
home.
did. Mhm.
You know what I mean? They have the ability to play down to one team and then turn around and make Virginia Tech look like they're not ready to play football, or Wake Forest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things where it's we never really kill Miami. We did last year, but I think last year was unique because Miami did not have a starting quarterback. It was a brand new head coach who was in over his head, it seemed like, at times that year. And we were able to just take advantage of the fact that all the Miami fans left as quickly as possible and emptied out of there. So this rivalry, like you probably heard a million times if you watched the game on TV, they would not stop talking about how 17 of the last 20 matchups have been decided by 8 points or less. That's just this game. It's always a close game. I should have seen it coming too when they said that the backup was coming in. That's never a good sign when it comes to Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
They just struggle with backup quarterbacks every year. I never understand it. Every single time I've ever watched this team play a backup quarterback, it's like, oh my god. Yeah. But I'm not too worried because you get North Alabama this week who,
Panic level 1 to 10. You go to the Swamp at night, where Florida, for some reason, plays a little better.
Yeah.
They do play better at home.
Mm-hmm.
What's panic level at? Like 1 being like DEFCON, like sound the.
I'm not worried about that game because if a team can throw the ball, Florida can't beat them.
What's so 10 is really bad, 1 is all right.
Yeah.
Like we're not worried at all.
Like a 5, I guess. I'm in the middle.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I mean it's like any rivalry though. Like the difference.
Those games tend to be close though. So
well, I would say the Florida State Miami game tends to be a little bit closer. Normally, our game tends to be a little bit more erratic.
Are you worried?
There's blowouts every couple of years.
Do you get nervous at all? Would you get nervous at all if like Florida State goes in as like a 17.5-point favorite on the road?
I'd be more worried about that. Yeah.
And it's going into the 4th. The Tom Petty's playing, and it's a 6-point game.
I get nervous for every football game.
But it's an 8-point game. Florida State's up. Florida has the ball though. Like, you going to be like, oh, we're going to blow this, or?
I would feel comfortable with our defense making a stop.
Sound good to me?
And also, I just not trying to hate on Florida here, but if a team can throw the ball,
the ball.
Team
can do anything against him.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, if a team is Kentucky, or a team is not Tennessee, and a team doesn't rely on running the ball first, they're going to beat Florida.
The difference in this game is going to be, it's going to be Jordan Travis using his legs, I think, more than anything, because Jaden Daniels, they got Brady Cook this week, and then you have Jordan Travis. All 3 of those quarterbacks do a great job of running the football.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be the difference maker. But we're going to move on, though. Washington.
Yep.
What were you going to? Yeah, one more thing?
I was just going to say, you're going to see 70 screens by Florida State against Florida. And you're going to be shocked at how every single one's like, wow, they got a first down on that.
Honestly.
It's going to be missed tackle hell.
Well, Florida can't get pressure. So, I mean, why? I mean, you don't even really need a screen. You can just drop back.
They just do. That's just Florida State loves running screens because they can make a screen look like a normal run for some reason, or normal pass. I mean, I don't get how they do it, but they do, and they get all these big gains where you're like, how do they even how did nobody notice this guy got over here with 4 offensive linemen?
All right, we're gonna move on real quick. We're gonna get through this one before we got some other stuff we got to get through.
Yep.
Washington escapes Utah. I thought Utah was gonna at least cover, and they did. So there's that. I was not going to be surprised at all if they did win, and they went into half winning.
Yeah.
But Washington escapes winning by 7 at home. It was a crazy play in the 3rd quarter where it was a pick. Utah was driving.
Yeah.
Bryson Barnes throws a bad pick. Washington goes down the field. Looks like it's going to be a pick 6. Guy throws the ball on the ground before crossing the goal line. Utah recovers it. They get backed up at their own 2. The ensuing play happens. Washington gets a safety, forces a safety. That would ended up being the difference maker, and no other points were scored in the 4th. But it was a back and forth game. Washington made the big play when they needed to, and the defense held on. Utah has a big game this week against Arizona. I think they'll win that. But, I mean, if you're Washington, I guess my only question real quick is before we move on.
Mhm.
Is playing with fire still? Is this going to end up being a bad ending here? Or do you think
I mean,
they're just playing? This is who they are. They just kind of
I think
get
they're going
by.
to lose to Oregon just
Oh,
because they are playing with fire right now.
this is like a TCU game. It's TCU
Yeah.
this year.
So I just think, look, when they play a team that has an offense and a defense that can compete with them, they're not going to win that game because they play, like you say, Florida State plays down to their opponents. Washington might be the masters of it.
Mm-hmm.
I have never they barely escaped Arizona State. They scooted by USC while giving them 40 points.
Stanford.
They played a close game with Stanford. They played a close game with Utah. And mind you, the Utah quarterback threw 2 interceptions. So it wasn't like,
Yeah.
they are really playing down to opponents. And at one point, because I think their schedule is just so tough,
Yeah.
they're gonna slip up. It's just unsustainable the way
I
they
think
play football.
I think they just have to win one more game from the next two to clinch a spot.
Yeah.
I think
And they play Oregon State
Oregon,
and Washington State.
an Oregon win and an Arizona loss, I think clinches the Pac-12 title game spots up. So, yeah, I think they're like this year's TCU. So we'll see if they can continue to just kind of skate by. But like a huge test this week against Oregon State.
Yeah.
All right, we're moving on though. Coaches are being fired everywhere. It's that time of the
Yep.
year. We got Zach Arnett, who was put in a tough spot after the Mike Leach death. He took over as head coach. He is fired.
Yep.
Jimbo Fisher's walking away with a lot of money.
Mhm.
I believe we got around 95 million?
77.
70, oh, yes,
77 is his buyout, yeah.
77.6 million was his buyout, plus the 19.3 he's owed from this year.
Yep.
Which
So I think his total contract, all the money he's made from A&M, is upwards of $120 million,
so he's
which is
owed.
ludicrous.
He'll guarantee after being fired
Mm-hmm.
$96.9 million is what he's
Yep.
going to be walking away with eventually in guaranteed money.
Yep.
Absurd. It shows that you can just be mediocre, be a college football coach, be mediocre or good enough to get a really good job,
Yeah.
trick your bosses into paying you a bunch of money, and then just be mediocre and get fired
Yep.
and get bought out. Get bought out, pull what Ed Ogeron did,
Yep.
and just Jimbo now is set till at least 2031.
Yeah. Now, I will be honest. I do think Jimbo is, 'cause, being a football coach, you have to have a big ego. But just having experienced him as a head coach, he won't just sit down and
No,
be quiet. He's going to take another job somewhere.
probably.
Probably not a great job. I mean, if Neil Brown gets fired, you never know, man.
There you go.
But I actually think that's a really good spot he could land, just because he's also from West Virginia. So,
Bring Saban back home to West Virginia.
amen. But I mean, I think this is the biggest story, even more important than any of the games this week, because especially our show, we've been talking about this since the show started. That
oh yeah,
Jimbo's gonna get fired, and
did
we
not
back
see it
and
coming.
forth. I didn't see it coming this weekend. I had a feeling it was gonna happen this year, though, just because A&M is. I saw somebody say this the other day, is that they are the richest school of all time, but their trophy case looks like a community college.
Yeah,
They have absolutely nothing to show for it. They have the world's worst symptom of little brother syndrome. Like
they're Penn State. It's Penn State.
It's worse than how Penn State. It's worse than any other country, any other program in the country when it comes to it, because they won't publicly say this, but the fact that Texas is ranked in the top 10 and has a good chance of going to the playoff this year was absolutely a factor in firing Jimbo Fisher this year.
Possibly.
I know that probably something, but it absolutely is something that plays into what the Board of Regents and the president of that school think.
You could say, well, if Texas is top 10, They're coming to the SEC next year. I
Yeah.
don't think they didn't want to get embarrassed. So, we have a new coach if something happens
Yeah.
next year because they play each other next year. So you can pull
They're
that.
going to play each other every year going forward.
Yeah. So
on Thanksgiving weekend.
We'll
which
talk
is
about
good.
this A&M
But-
subject here.
Yeah.
Hold
But,
that thought, because go finish what you're going to say.
I just want to say I think this is going to be the most interesting coaching hire of all time, this next one, just because they have the money they could spend on literally anybody. But I mean, look, the only way they get somebody to take this job right now is if you give them a buttload of cash, right?
Well, I mean, they just got that big old check that night before during the game.
That's what I'm saying. But like, is the school going to make that big of a mistake giving a guy a buyout that big? But there's no way a coach is going to agree to take that job without a massive buyout because they're going to get fired quick.
Well, I have a topic on hot seat questions coming up, but
Okay.
It's definitely got to be. They can't rush us. They can't just take the prettiest name.
Mhm.
Like they actually need to pick the right guy for this.
Yeah, I think they want Dan Lanning.
I don't
think if there's any guy, Lanning won't
leave.
go. I don't think Lanning will go. I think the guys I saw that were coming up were, you saw Mike Elko, Dan Lanning.
Hold that.
Okay, we'll talk that later. Yeah, though.
Final one, and tonight,
Mhm.
Chip Kelly will be expected to be fired after a USC game this year. Little surprising because he has done a really good job, I think, at turning UCLA around from where they were just a couple years ago. But going to the Big Ten, you want higher expectations than where they are at. With a really good quarterback at Dante Moore, so maybe they just want to go a different way. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on as well. Who wants to go to A&M? Who wants to go out to UCLA? You're gonna have to compete with recruits, compete with guys that want to go to USC. So you're gonna have to deal with that. Now there's a whole lot going on.
We could talk about a separate question. Which is a better job?
Texas A&M. There's no.
Is it UCLA is going to the Big Ten?
Texas A&M. Better money, better facilities, better area.
You do have really good money though. You do have a really
it's not oil money though.
No, they got Hollywood money.
Taxes aren't as high if we're going geographically.
Yeah.
Taxes aren't as high. You have the alumni that will give you any dollar sign you want, any amount you want. The facilities are top notch. You're in recruiting wealth zone or just a recruiting hotspot.
Yeah.
Everything you need is right there already. UCLA, it's just not even comparable, I don't think.
I do think UCLA is a lot better than people think when it comes to what they have, because you do have obviously they're going to be in the Big 12, so they're in one of the top conferences in America. When it comes to their athletic program, spends money like it's nothing constantly on the wildest things you'll ever hear about. So I mean, they gave Under Armour $300 million to not make them their clothes anymore, so they can move to Jordan. They have money. But they're quiet.
It's not that oil money though. Not
that
Texas money.
But they do have a very large booster system.
Fan base isn't the same. They don't even have their own stadium.
No, but
that's a basketball. That's a basketball baseball school.
Yeah.
Give
it the right coach though. That could be a powerhouse.
It can. As could any team. As A&M as well. I mean, A&M is a coach away and possibly a quarterback away, but I think they have something where they what's his name? With their quarterback room right now.
Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about. I don't remember his name, but we'll move on.
All right, we're gonna move on to hot seats.
Yep.
And our first question for Dylan. Oh, Connor Wegman and Connor Wegman. That's what.
Yep. Max Johnson too. Don't forget Max.
Yes, Max Johnson, Connor Wegman. Connor Wegman though has the more big future.
Connor Wegman's going to be the starter. Just straight up.
Hot seat question number 1. We'll roll right through these.
Okay.
Who is your Heisman Trophy finalist to this point? We'll give you 3 spots. Was it 3 or 4 spots?
4 spots go.
Who is your spot? Or
who do I have going to New York?
Yes.
So I have Bo Nix, Jane Daniels, Michael Penix Jr., and I'm kind of debating this right now, but I'm gonna go Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4 right now.
Nice. I would
But
probably.
I'm gonna be honest with you on this one. When I say Michael, number 4, I don't think he even has a real chance.
No.
I think it's more
He's
of like
just
a
there as
pity
the
thing.
non-position guy.
Yeah, it's the pity non-position guy.
There is a tweet from Barstool SEC tonight. And it goes, I am so sick and tired of hearing about Marvin Harrison Jr. being associated with the Heisman. If Marvin Harrison wasn't his father's son and he didn't play for Ohio State, he would never be mentioned once. He's 7th in receiving yards, 27th in receptions, and 2nd in touchdowns. He says, I mean, what are we doing? Do you think he's being overhyped?
A little bit. I mean, look, here's the thing. He plays at the place, puts wide receivers in first-round conversations every year.
Yeah.
I don't think he should be the Heisman candidate. I mean, it's like, what has he really done?
No, he hasn't done. I mean, he had a big game against Penn State, but other than that, I mean, he hasn't. He's been as steady as it be. I mean, it could be overshadowed too by the poor, not as good quarterback play.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, the current odds are. Here, I'm going to pull this up from Vegas Insider. Actually, we'll just use BetGM. Here we go. Bo Nix. It's Bo Nix at -110. Michael Penix plus 375. Jaden Daniels plus 400. Marvin Harrison plus 550. And then it's Carson Beck at plus 3,500. Jalen Milroe at plus 5,000. Jordan Travis at plus 6,000. JJ McCarthy at plus 10,000. And we'll stop it there.
Yeah. I mean, we can have a conversation about Beck, but I just don't think he gets to New York.
He's a Davey O'Brien finalist, but he needs to go off for...
The problem is when you pull up his highlights, there's so many times where it looks like his receivers are making plays more than it looks like he's putting the ball in good spots.
The
Ladd McConkey touchdown that people were reposting.
But
Ladd McConkey had to run backwards to get an underthrow. It's like, that does not help.
Well, I mean, they ended up scoring though. So I mean,
it doesn't really bother them, but I think it hurts Carson Beck's really I'm one of the best quarterbacks in the country because I think it automatically makes people go, oh well, he has Brock Bowers. And
I think in every game except for the South Carolina game, he's thrown for 300.
Yeah.
So 300. He didn't throw 300 against Vanderbilt, but I mean he's taking care of the football.
Yeah.
He's making smart decisions.
Yeah.
For a first-year quarterback who's waited, I mean, he has played out of his mind. He's probably already rumored to come back for next year. Quinn Ewers is coming back next year too, by the way.
Yep, I saw it, yeah.
To answer this question, I think it's Bo Nix, Penix, Daniels, Harrison, but Carson Beck has goes into Neyland and just completely destroys Tennessee and then takes out Georgia Tech and let's say just completely just slices up Alabama's defense, which nobody's been able to really figure out how to do.
Yeah, except for the Texas.
Yeah, find out. I mean, I think that is a Heisman-worthy ballot right there.
I mean, we can talk more about it.
Should Jaden Daniels be the Heisman frontrunner?
Personally, I have Bo Nix as my Heisman frontrunner right now, just because.
Is it off of record-wise? Is it the team?
It's a little bit. It's a little bit.
Because it's supposed to be the best player.
Here's the thing: he has not had a bad game this year.
He has not.
Every single game, Bo Nix has made his team, has elevated every player on his team. At least to me, when I watch his games, all the other guys have had bad games behind him, right? Jane Daniels had the Florida State game. Michael Penix Jr. had the Arizona State game. Jalen Milroe had the Texas game. All the quarterbacks below him, outside of Carson Beck, but the thing with Carson Beck is, again, there's going to be the conversation where they're like, this team could just do these, you know what I mean? people are going to make the. I don't think it's true, but people are going
I
to
think he
say.
helped himself out
Yeah.
though. Without when Bowers has been out, he still has been top
I think he helped
notch.
himself out, but I don't see it because I just think his argument is harder to make than a
His
lot of the other
argument's gonna be
quarterbacks.
easier to make with this if they get through this stretch here with unscathed. But yeah, Bo Nix should be my favorite. Jaden Daniels is second to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's closer than people think, and then it'll be Penix, and then Harrison and Beck right there.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna move on.
Mm-hmm.
I think actually we already skipped this one because we kind of.
I mean, I think we both agree with it. Yeah, I'm looking at the list here. I see it.
Yeah, because the second one we already talked about that
Mm-hmm.
one. All right, so with Oklahoma State's loss this week, who do you think Texas plays in this Big 12 title game?
So, I mean, just looking at it right now, I believe the odds-on favorite is now Oklahoma. Yeah. However, Oklahoma State, I believe, still has the easiest. Yeah. Oklahoma State plays Houston and BYU.
Yeah.
Oklahoma has to play BYU and TCU.
Mm-hmm.
So most likely, both of those teams are going to win out.
What if Iowa State's still alive? Kansas State's still hanging around?
Iowa State is only alive till they play Texas this weekend.
And if they beat Texas?
The Texas probably doesn't go to the Big 12 championship.
Which would be so funny. And would actually add FSU needs to lose. Texas loses in Ames this weekend.
Yeah.
Oh, man. There's already volcanoes all around the world blowing up.
Mm-hmm.
Add that one to just the list of doomsday. So
yeah.
All right. All right, I'm going to let you answer this one. Who should Texas A&M's next head coach be?
Okay.
Quickly.
So, this could go on for a while, if we're being honest with each other. But I think it's down to two guys they need to go after.
Okay.
Number one, if they want to go the non-flashy, just the smart pick, they should go Elko.
What if Mike Norvell, who's on the top of the list, guys?
The problem I see with Mike Norvell is that Florida State is going to give him a big extension.
I think they have to. Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, what if A&M throws a big number at him?
I also don't think A&M is going to go after another Florida State head coach right after the last one they fired did not
We've
work
learned
out
our
well
lesson.
For them. That's what it sounds stupid, but I really do think there's probably going to be people at A&M who go, let's not go with that guy. Let's go with either Elko or I think Kiffin. I think there's going to be a lot of people in the room who want Kiffin. Because really it's just going to come down to who the boosters want. The oil barons.
I have a list pulled up here from Bleacher Report. It says top 8 coaches as Lance Leipold, Chris Kleiman from Kansas State, Mike Norvell, Lane Kiffin, Kalen DeBoer from Washington, Dan Lanning, Jeff Traylor, who's at UTSA, and then Mike Elko. So I'm going to say Mike Elko and that Chris Kleiman one might be an interesting one.
I can see that. I mean,
look what he does at Kansas State with that recruit team.
If I'm A&M, I think A&M is going to go for the flashiest pick possible, though.
See, and I don't think that. I think they're going to learn their lesson and know, like, listen, we need to figure out, we need to find the right guy. And I think Elko or Kleiman might be that. Kalen DeBoer might be another one.
I mean, Kalen DeBoer to a degree. I don't know if they're going to. I actually think if they pick him, it might be a mistake for them. But I think if any coach could turn out as a bad hire for A&M, I think it might be Kalen DeBoer. Because he has zero experience recruiting in Texas. Like, of all the things you need, he is from South Dakota and he has only worked at schools in the Midwest and the West coast, Northwest. So he could be, if any coach, I feel like he could be a disaster hire.
Well, we'll have to wait and see, and I'm sure there'll be an update or two in the coming days. So
give it a week, they'll hire a guy. They're gonna.
Our final question here is: was Jim Harbaugh's punishment fair or not enough? He was suspended 3 games the rest of the regular season, and then they'd go from there. I just think that the fact that the Big Ten did what they did the night before a game of a magnitude, without really any substantial evidence to back their claim off of, is the wild part. I don't think it was fair enough.
See,
I don't think it was enough because I think that if there's going to be a suspension, there should have been at least, or maybe there's going to be something bigger down the road until they get like an actual evidence. But if they're waiting, that's fine. But if you're just going to throw a punishment out now, why wasn't there a sanction, a bowl sanction, or
why didn't they just force him to vacate the rest of the wins of the season?
Fine them.
Like, go harder.
Yeah, fine them. Or
ban them from the Big Ten championship.
Make them. Yeah, I mean, you could have done that.
Things you could have done more, but it's just weird to me because it feels like there's people in the Big Ten like office who had strong opinions about this without the evidence to prove it yet, and they wanted to send a message to Michigan before Michigan could make any addresses. You know what I mean? I mean, Michigan more or less has, they've said it happened.
Do you think that if Michigan, let's say they're not 10-0, they're 7-3?
Nothing happens.
7-3?
Nothing happens.
Do you think that they just completely just lay the hammer down because they know they're not in contention by anything? No. It is what it is.
I think they would not do anything just because I think they would go, oh, well, let's see this through and then let's do this offseason to hurt them. They were thinking, this looks really bad at us. We need to make a last-second thing because we have people screaming at us all over the country that we're not doing anything or that we're doing too much. Let's just do something. And the only thing they could think of to do was to ban Jim Harbaugh like an hour before the game starts. Tell me we can't go into the stadium and that we're going to file a restraining order.
Yeah, what? And then that doesn't go into – he gets a hearing, I think, Friday. So – which is it's just a bunch of wild stuff.
Jim Harbaugh was saying they didn't even contact him. He found out through social media that he was banned from coaching a game. It's just a total mess on the Big Ten's part.
He did say that Michigan's America's team, which is funny.
That was funny. That was funny.
Completely not true.
He definitely did that just to stoke people.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing.
He said that with the biggest smile on his face ever because he got to say it's all about his America's team.
For sure. Well, there's always something new coming up each day with this silly scandal. So we'll keep an eye on it as we always do with everything else. But we'll wrap up this episode with winners and losers of the week, as we always do on these recap episodes. Make sure you guys are subscribing. We're on our road to...
I was looking at Social Blade, just checking in. Saturday, we added 4 subscribers. We had a big day Saturday.
Absolutely huge. You love to see that. Make sure, if you guys are watching and you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. We're trying to get to 100. We got to 100, guys. We are on the rise. But we got to keep going.
Happening. Yeah.
If you're waiting at the bus and you love college football and you're watching it or know us, spread the word. Tell them to listen. Hey, great podcast out there. Hit that subscribe button because they're good. So make sure you guys are doing that because it helps us out and helps you out.
And one more thing before we go into it, I do want to address we've had a lot of dramatic growth over this year. I mean, just at the end of May, we had 44 subscribers. We are at 73 subscribers on November 14th at 11:50 at night. We are killing it. I mean, our yearly estimate is 132 subs. I mean, guys, we're doing fantastic. We appreciate all the support so far.
If YouTube believes in us, we know you guys, we can count on you guys to get that job done. So, all right, winners and losers of the week. For my winners, I have Jaden Daniels. He became the first quarterback in college football history, I believe, if I recall, if I'm re-saying it right, to rush for 200 yards and to throw for 350 yards. LSU had actually, I'm going to say that for the losers. But LSU had 701 total yards of offense. Jaden Daniels, again, did his thing and shows why he is, if we're basing the Heisman off of best record, that's one thing. But if you're supposed to be looking at the best overall player in the country, I think Jaden Daniels has to be that. So I'm going to put Bo Nix, like I said earlier. I think Bo Nix is there at top spot. But Jaden Daniels is like right there. Like it's very, you're going to split hairs, and it's probably just based off record. So Jaden Daniels, and then Michigan, a lot of people doubted them going into this week because they hadn't played anybody, and then they had to go to Happy Valley, in their first big test of the year. I was doubting them. Dylan did not. But they literally ran Penn State out of the stadium without their head coach. All of the off-field distractions were there, but they ran the ball out of the stadium, ran Penn State out of the stadium, and got a huge win, which setting up a big-time game at home in a couple weeks with Ohio State. So those are my winners. Who are yours?
I had Michigan and Georgia. I mean, look, both of those teams killed their top 10 opponents they had to play. I mean, obviously the Michigan score looked a lot closer, but just watching that game, it was not close.
There was
Penn State looked like they were fighting to be in that game.
It felt like a big letdown week this week. There was a lot of big games that we thought were going to be bigger than what we thought. I mean, realistically, Washington and Utah was really, and maybe Florida State was like the two most competitive games.
Yeah.
Florida State, Tennessee, Missouri. Tennessee completely laid an egg. I might add them to the losers list. Completely had a shot to keep the SEC East alive. It didn't matter because Georgia won, but they could have won and potentially put pressure on Georgia to have to win. Otherwise, you would have set up an SEC East play-in game to get into it. Who wants to go to Atlanta? So, but they completely got crushed by Missouri. Cody Schrader ran wild against them. And so now Tennessee goes back home and now gets Georgia, who is probably going to do the same thing. And then, the Georgia and Michigan, like you were saying, completely just took care of business. So,
yeah.
My losers are the University of Florida and their defense.
Yeah.
Look,
I just want to say something about that game. I said, look, Florida's defense can't stop anybody. I think Tennessee, or I think LSU covers. You were like, I don't think so.
Well,
but you know what?
First of all, it was Florida was leading and led for a small portion in the third quarter. So,
but
I don't want to say for a little bit it was like a track meet because neither team was really stopping each other. Florida did have a really nice goal line stand.
Yeah.
In the first half, but you gave up 701 total yards of offense.
They gave up 21 points in the third quarter. Florida did.
Just can't have it. Can't have it. The offense played well because
I think Florida has a decent offense. I do think Graham Mertz is the epitome of the non-risk quarterback. He does not turn the ball over, but he also never puts the ball in harm's way or pushes the ball that far downfield.
Yeah.
So, he might be the world's greatest
Florida's
general manager quarterback.
And he'll be back next year. Florida's defense gave up 701 total yards of offense, 372 through the air. They allowed LSU averaged 14 yards per pass. 329 on the ground, 9.4 yards per rush. 25 first downs.
Yep.
LSU gave up 27 first downs, but you can't let LSU do that to you. You just can't.
Yeah.
Just what are we doing? And another loss. They're still at that 5.5. That win total is still sitting there. 5.5 was the win total this year. They're still stuck right now. They're at 5-5. Now they have Missouri.
I just want to bring this up real quick. In the post-game interview, Billy Napier was asked about the defensive coordinator, how defensive coordinator Austin Armstrong has handled the defensive struggles, and then Billy Napier said, "I think Austin's done a great job this year."
I don't think he's not going to just roast his DC like
could have just said, "I can't answer that question right now."
Next question. And then my other loser of the week was Oklahoma State. What are we doing? Just an utter letdown spot. Should have saw it coming. We knew Malzahn always has one trick up his sleeve.
Yep.
But, you had been playing well. I should have realized it when you just you won the last Bedlam for a while, but then you got to go to UCF, who had been struggling.
Yep.
And I was like, Ollie Gordon's going to just run wild on this team. And my God, Ollie Gordon went 12 carries for 25 yards. They rushed for 52 yards in general. They only had 277 total yards. They went 2 of 12 on third downs. They had 4 turnovers.
Mhm.
UCF had 592 yards of total offense. Almost
Plumlee looked like a Heisman quarterback.
John Rice Plumlee had
looked crazy.
299 yards and 3 touchdowns. They rushed for 293.
Mm-hmm.
You want a padlock stat? This one, 15.7 yards through the air. Just great. They rushed the ball 51 times. 45-3. Knights win. So those are my.
I want to say this. I asked my roommate. I got off work at 2:00, right? I go over to my roommate and I say, "Hey man, UCF game is at 3:30. Tickets are only $10. You want to go?" And he was like, "Nah, let's just stay home."
They were in the space unis too.
I know, dude. They look so good. People were they let fans rush the field too after the game.
Mm-hmm. Could have been you.
Yep.
But
I would have been out there on the field.
Who are your losers of the week?
My losers are number 1, Texas A&M. You win.
But they won by 41.
But then they have to give their head coach $77 million. And just you know what I mean? I mean, we knew this was coming.
There it is. That's what they give their coach. Add a bunch of million after that.
$96.9 million.
And guaranteed money. Until 2031. Yep.
I mean, this is what I'll say. Jimbo Fisher was not the guy in Texas A&M. I mean, it was so funny looking on freezing cold take Twitter, and people reposting back in 2017 when Texas A&M gave him a national championship plaque with the dates not written in yet. That was incredible.
Oh yeah.
One of the funniest things I've ever seen a school do. And that should be a lesson to every school on the planet. Never do that ever. Jimbo Fisher never won 10 games in the season at A&M, and they have to give that guy $96 million to stay away from College Station.
Well, now he gets to just live out somewhere in like Cancun, Mexico, with all that money.
Yeah, and then my second loser was also Oklahoma State because they lost 45-3
against, let's be a very subpar UCF team.
I mean, look, this is what I'll say: UCF is a lot better with Plumlee than the other quarterbacks. I don't think they're as bad.
The same UCF team with Plumlee that watched West Virginia roll into Orlando and boat race them.
To be fair, they almost beat Oklahoma in Norman.
West Virginia, who couldn't stop anybody, went in and boat raced UCF. So,
but they couldn't beat Oklahoma for some reason.
That's because they wanted to get fancy on 2-point conversions.
They lost 59-20.
Well, to be fair, West Virginia did lead 7-0.
Okay. But I think that's everything for today, right?
It is. A very loaded show we had today, but those are our recap episodes. We have all the rankings, all the great coaching, firing, hot questions. We have all that. So we had to get through all that. Thursday show shouldn't be terribly long, but you never know.
Yeah.
Only got a couple good games this weekend, so we'll do our due.
We'll have a good time talking about it, yeah.
Yeah. But make sure you guys are, like we've been saying, make sure you guys are subscribing because we're trying to get to that big triple digits number. So we need you guys to do that. But more importantly, make sure you guys are watching and listening on Spotify. The link for Spotify will always be in the YouTube bio. If you can't find us, College Football Talk on Spotify for some reason, just go to the link in our bio on YouTube. Find it there. We will see you guys Thursday. Have a great one. Peace out.
See you guys.